So hey guys, thanks for joining me for another video. Welcome to the Random Watch Do channel. I'm just some random dude down here in Auckland in New Zealand who likes to talk aimlessly about the watch addiction, the watch obsession that I have. And today guys, I'm doing a very special review of 3 divers watches today, because divers watches are my obsession. Not just any old watch guys, a diver's watch, because I don't think I've gone into this in too much detail in my previous videos, but I am actually a diver. I haven't disclosed that very often in the past, but I regularly, on a daily basis, go desk diving. And of course these watches, these desk dive watches are a critical tool. You can't survive a day in the office without a desk diver. You can't call yourself a desk diver unless you have a diver's watch. So today guys, I'm doing a review of 3 divers watches that I have in my collection. 2 of them are Omegas, Neo Classic or Neo Vintage Omegas. They're both Seamasters, and I'm going to compare those 2 watches with each other. And if you hang on until the end, if you can hang on to the bitter end of this video guys, I'm also going to put those 2 watches up against a very special watch that I also have in my collection, which is the Rolex Submariner. Okay, so here we are guys, we've got 3 legendary divers really here, haven't we? We've got 3 legendary divers. Over here on the right hand side we've got the Omega Seamaster 300 Professional. This is the 2254.50 41mm diameter Peter Blake. Here in the middle we've got the Omega Seamaster Professional 300 again. This is the 2220.80, often referred to as the I'm not sure that it is often referred to, but I'm going to refer to it often as the Daniel Craig Casino Royale, because he wore this watch, this particular model, in Casino Royale. Again, it's a 41mm diameter diver's watch. And here on the far left hand side we've got the one and only ubiquitous, infamous Rolex Submariner. This is the modern Rolex Submariner 124060, and again it's referred to as a 41mm diameter diver. So what we have here guys is a nice little trio. Let me just try and zoom in there a little bit more for you. A nice little trio of 41mm divers. There you go. All the same size, all very different as well. 3 very different watches. So what I'm going to do in this video is just pick each watch up individually just for a minute or 2 and just talk to you about their unique characteristics. I'm not going to do a comparison review. I'm not going to try and tell you which of these watches is better than the other. All I'm going to do is show you what I've got here, what's good about them, what's not so good about them of course as well. And we're all different, we're all going to have different opinions on this, but look, hey, I think this is a great opportunity with these 3 watches just to show you 3 really infamous, ubiquitous watches, what's good, what's bad, and you can make your mind up which one you prefer, of course. Okay, so here we are with the Peter Blake, the Omega Seamaster 300 2254.50 41mm diameter. What I really like about this watch, and I'll just jump into the things that I really love about it, and I'll just talk about a couple of things that I don't like about it. One of the things that I really love about it, first off the bat, and it goes without saying of course, is the huge lume pots. Well, they're not actually pots, they're stamped lume, they're sticky looms. They're not pots like you traditionally see on, let's say, the Submariner, which I'll show you soon, and also even the other Omega Seamaster they've got. These lume markings here are kind of stuck on, they're stamped on, but they're huge. I mean, this thing's glowing in full daylight. I have not got a watch. I have not got a watch that has as good a lume as this watch. The lume on this is shockingly good. And why? It's because there's just so much of it. And the sword hands, of course, it's got the famous sword hands that Omega have done a really good job of not putting on their modern models. I have no idea why. I don't know why they don't use these sword hands on some of their more modern Seamasters. They really need to, desperately. Get away from those skeleton hands, guys. And of course, there's a precedent set with Omega where they have, for many years, run with the skeleton hands on the Seamaster, but they also, at the same time, this model was running at the same time as the Blue Dial 2531.8 that had the skeleton hands. There's no reason at all why Omega can't have different versions of the Seamaster with different hands, but for some reason they're going all in with the skeleton hands. I don't mind the skeleton hands, but I think I prefer these even more. Aluminium bezel, of course, very thin watch. This watch runs on the movement, which is just a modified ETA. So I believe it's a modified 2892 ETA. It's referred to as the Omega 1120 movement. It's a good movement, very solid, very reliable. It's running on the, what you might refer to, I guess, as the Speedmaster bracelet. Not the typical Seamaster bracelet, which I think has 9 links. This is a more robust and a more masculine looking, more masculine, that's a word, isn't it? More masculine. Is it masculine, or does it just look a little bit more sporty and a bit more beefy? But it's a Speedmaster bracelet. It's a lovely bracelet, very comfortable. And of course, it's on the best clasp that Omega ever made, in my opinion. This is a lovely clasp, very thin, very narrow. It's well made, simple to use, got a lovely tactile feel about it. And of course, the case back on the 2254, really nice, solid case back. Look at that pattern, look at that lovely wave dial. Sometimes I do actually take this watch off and just marvel at that lovely pattern on the back there. It's quite mesmerizing, actually, especially in this type of light, especially in natural light. It's quite mesmerizing sometimes to just play around with it. So what do I like about this watch the most? I love the legibility. Absolute legend when it comes to legibility. I will put some lume shots on of these 3 watches together, actually, near the end of the video. I love the legibility of this watch. It's an accurate watch. It's a sporty watch. It's a luxurious watch, but it also doesn't sing out, look at me, you know. It kind of just sits on the wrist there. 7.2-inch wrist, by the way. Sits nice and comfy on the wrist. It doesn't sing out as a piece of jewellery as much as maybe the Sub does, or even the other Seamaster. And there's no question that this watch has got a very strong following for those very reasons. It just does what it does really well, really quietly, really subtly. It's a gorgeous watch, guys. Absolutely gorgeous watch. So let's compare that to the other Seamaster, which is the 2220.80, 241mm divers. Let me just put them down here, and I'll just zoom in. Let's just zoom in on these 2 babies. There we are. So these 2 watches weren't quite around at the same time. Or they were. That's a lie. There's a slight overlap. The 2254.5 ran until 2008. And this watch, the 2220.80, started in 2006. So there was a couple of years overlap between these 2 watches. They do have 2 different movements. So the watch on the right has the coaxial movement. It was actually the first Seamaster that had the coaxial movement, which is the 2500. Still a modified ETA, I believe 2892. But in order to pack that coaxial movement on top of the ETA, the watch became slightly thicker, and you can actually see, it's probably easier if I just compare the 2, you can actually see a difference in thickness there. So considerably thicker by Seamaster standards. The 2220.80 became about a millimetre thicker when they changed the movement to the 2500 from the 1120, but it's got the coaxial escapement in it. And look at that dial. What a gorgeous dial. It's got the same wave pattern as the black 2254.5. But look at the dial on the blue there. Lovely. So every now and then when this catches in the light like it is now, you just see that on the wrist and it just grabs your attention. It's kind of the sort of thing that only the wearer can see, and that's what I really like about this watch. That's what I like about the Seamaster generally. There are so many really subtle, beautiful things about the dial and just about the general aesthetic of this watch that only the wearer can see. And also you can see there the Omega applied logo, whereas the logo on the previous Seamasters were not applied, they were just printed. So we've got an applied logo, and of course we've got Seamaster under that applied logo written in red text. So there were a few little additions. It's still got the aluminium bezel. As you know, the modern Seamasters have a ceramic bezel. This has still got an aluminium bezel. and it's still got the scalloped bezel. And look, I've got to say, there's one thing about the bezel on these older Seamasters, and it's a big letdown. So I told you I was going to talk about things that aren't so good about these watches too, is these bezels are a bit of a nightmare to turn. I mean, that's not too bad now, but sometimes you try and turn the bezel on this thing, and it's like your fingers just slip. They slip. These bezels they're designed, it's almost like they're designed to be moved with force, but unless you put a lot of force in them, they're not going anywhere. They're not very tactile. I mean, it's pretty precise. I've gone around a bit too far there. That's going to annoy me if I don't sort that out. But you can see I'm putting quite a lot of work in to not get very far. These are not easy bezels to use, guys. And actually, I used my 2254.5 this morning because I refereed my boys' football match this morning for his local football team, and I actually used this watch to referee that game. This one's not easy to turn either, but it's a little bit easier. You can probably hear the difference. This one's easier to turn, but it's still not great. But it is precise. Gone round too far again. Let's see it again. If I don't fix that now, it's going to do my head in. So I'm just going to whiz that round again so that it's lined up nicely. Because I'm a watch enthusiast, right, everything's got to be perfect. And you know what I'm like when it comes to alignment of things, if you watch my last video. I don't do misalignment. Anyway, so the 2220.80 has the classic Seamaster bracelet, as you can see here. It's like, is it 9 links? 3, 6, 7, 8, yeah, 9 links. I had to count them again just to be sure. Now, a lot of people don't like the bracelet on this particular Seamaster, but I'm gonna put it out there, guys. I love this bracelet. I think it's great. A lot of people don't like the fact that it doesn't taper. I love the fact that it doesn't taper. It's got a really wide clasp, so it's just as wide at the lugs as it is at the clasp. And I'll just give you a comparison, because the 2254.5 tapers. It starts at 20 mil. Both of these watches have a 20 mil lug width, but they taper significantly. Now look at the difference here with the clasps. So you lose a couple of mil on the 2254.5, whereas this one on the right here still stays at 20 mil. What difference does that make to the wearing? And this is another thing with these two watches, is this watch, for me, on my wrist, on my 7.2 inch wrist, wears considerably nicer than the other. There you go, I said it. This watch wears much nicer, and it's because of the bracelet. And there is an added weight to the case, but this bracelet on my wrist wears an awful lot more comfortably and tighter. I've just got a nicer fit with this bracelet than I have with this one. This one I have to wear a little bit loose. There are half links, and as you can see, I've got a half link in there, but and there's no micro adjust on either of these bracelets, of course. But I do find this one more comfortable. I find it considerably more comfortable. Let's have a look at the case back. So the case back is slightly different. Again, it's still, still a solid case back. If I'm going to be totally honest with you, I prefer the case back of the 2254. Let's just get that one out again and show you the case back. Let me see if I can zoom in on these two. There you go. So I think I prefer the case back on the right to the case back on the left. What do you think? I mean, they're very different, aren't they? But I do prefer the case back on the right. I just like the mesmerising pattern there. See that mesmerising pattern? I much prefer that, I think, to the case back on the Seamaster. But I still prefer both of these case backs considerably more than I do on the see-through case back on the modern Seamaster. Now, I'm not criticising the see-through case back on the modern Seamaster, and it is a pretty movement. You get to see the movement, granted, but I just think when on a watch like this, I just think it's lovely to see these solid case backs. So there you go. If I had to put these two watches side by side like this, and you said to me, "Come on, Mark, pick a winner. Pick, winner, chicken. Who's gonna get the wrist today?" And both of these watches, like they are now, they're running. I don't have to get up in the morning and set one of them. They're both running. Let's just zoom in. Which one are you going to pick, Mark? If that's the question you asked me, I'll tell you what, I'm going to be really super indecisive. I mean, look at these two watches. Aren't they bloody gorgeous? Two sexy, gorgeous, sporty. The Spy Who Loved Me, Casino Royale, Die Another Day watches. I can't split them, guys. I'm sorry. One has a better bracelet. I prefer the bracelet on this one. Okay? So 1-0. But then I prefer the Lume on this. The Lume on this is shockingly good. It really is. I can wear both of these watches quite happily, without wishing I was wearing the other. So guys, the only thing I can say to you is, which do I prefer? The answer is neither. So the answer is, therefore, vis-a-vis, buy them both, right? Buy them both. And I don't like to consider myself as a YouTuber, you know, to be one of those guys that encourages people to go out and spend loads of money. But if you're struggling to decide between these two watches, my recommendation is buy them both. That's the answer. But of course, then that leads to the next question that we must answer here. And how do we compare both of these watches that are inseparable to the Rolex Submariner? How do we compare these two watches? Well, the answer again is we don't. You can't. You cannot compare those two watches to the Subby. The Subby is the Subby. There is no comparison. There is no way you can compare these two watches, these two gorgeous watches, to the Submariner. The Submariner is the Submariner. What do I like about the Submariner? Well, tell you what, the bezel is amazing. It's easy to turn, the bezel. Oh, it's like, you know, it's like trying to pick a safe. It's like trying to pick a really expensive safe that's full of diamonds. You know, that's the kind of bezel action we've got going on here. It is gorgeous. The accuracy on this, by the way, is stunning. It's running at ±0. In other words, you set the time on this, and in 3 months' time, you don't even have to check the accuracy. That's how it's been running for me. The bracelet's really nice. It does taper quite considerably. Actually, I'll just compare the clasp thickness on this to the clasp thickness on the Seamaster. There you go. You can see that the clasp here holds its own quite well against the Seamaster, and that's the thing about these modern subs, is their clasp is still very thick at the base, even compared to the previous model, the 114. What was that? Yeah, 114060, which had a thinner clasp. They widened the clasp, on the modern Submariner compared to the previous subs. They did that because they wanted to get a nicer fit. I think they just wanted to get a nicer fit. You know, there's no question that the glide lock clasp is really good. It's got the micro adjust, of course. In here we have a nice micro adjust. I can just pop that up and move that up and down. Look how many adjustments I've got there. I've got loads of adjustments. And I pop that back in. Very nice. Very nice. And the watch, of course, wears super, because of that, because you've got the micro adjust, the watch wears super comfortably. Very nice. Very nice. This is probably the nicest fit. Why is it the nicest fit? Because it's the only one of these three watches that has the micro adjust. However, aesthetically, I don't like the clasp aesthetically. I just think it looks a bit too brutish and industrial when you compare it, let's say, to the clasp on the Seamaster, which is far from brutish and industrial. I much prefer this clasp compared to that one. See, to me, that's all a little bit ugly and a little bit... Look at the gap in there. Look at that huge gap. As an example, look at that big gap in there. What's going on there, look? I mean, surely there's a way to design a clasp where you don't see that ugly gap in there, but it's perfectly normal. That's what it is, and that's what they've got to do, you know, to get it to do all these funky things. I get that. So you got this ugly gap right there. No gaps here, brother. Look at that. No gaps here. Beautiful. No gaps here. Look at the nice little bit of flexibility in there as well. So this clasp aesthetically is much nicer than the Rolex clasp, although the Rolex clasp is more comfortable. So Rolex have sacrificed prettiness on their clasp for functionality, and I totally get that. I'm okay with it. And actually with Omega's newer clasps that are also micro adjustable, they're ugly as well. Very, very comfortable clasps, but they're ugly. So let's put the I've done a video on this before, by the way. Let's put the 2254 up against the sub. They're both very similar sized. Look, you know, which is better? Which is better? I mean, how could you possibly decide which is better out of these two? How could you possibly decide? They're two different watches, aren't they? Let me just zoom in a bit closer for you there. They're two different watches, surely. You can't compare these two watches and say one is better than the other. Objectively, you might be able to say, and objectively, if you're being objective, you'd probably say the Sub is a better watch. Technically, it's a better watch. Technically, probably more robust as well. But subjectively, there is nothing that you could possibly say to split these two watches. They're both absolute bangers. So if the question was asked of you, would you buy a modern Submariner or a Neo Vintage or a Neo Classic Seamaster, what would my answer be? Well, my answer would be the same as it was earlier, is you can't choose, you can't separate these guys. You cannot separate these watches. They're all bangers. Absolute bangers. I feel very lucky to have them. I feel privileged to be able to own all three of these watches. And what I'm going to do now, guys, to finish this video is I'm going to just move over to a Lume shot. So I'm just going to go into my pantry, because as you can see, it's still daytime here. So I'm going to stick these under a blue light, my marine aquarium blue light. That will get the Lume on these absolutely pumping. And then I'm going to stick all three of these into the pantry, take a video, and let's see how the Lume compares. So I changed my mind, guys. I thought I was going to stick these under a blue light to get them really pumping, but I've changed my mind. I'm just going to let you see what these watches look like after they've just been out in the natural light. So on the far left there, we have the 2254.5. On the right, we have the Casino Royale 2220.80. And here in the middle, I'm just going to pop the subby. There we are. Okay, let me just close the door. Lovely. So all three of them have very, very good Lume. Now, here's an interesting thing, and you'll probably have spotted this already. What is the time? If you were to look on the far right, what is the time right now? It's not easy to tell, is it? And why is that? So this is this watch on the right is the 2220.80, the Daniel Craig, the blue Seamaster that I showed you. Now, good Lume, very good Lume, but it's not actually that easy to tell the time. Look at the, so it's 2:05, just in case you haven't worked it out already by looking at the other two watches. It's 2:05, but of course that skeleton hand only has Lume at the far tip. And because it's now hovering, the minute hand is hovering over the 5-minute marker, you can't actually, so at night you would really struggle to see that, and I have. And even the Lume on the hour marker isn't particularly large. So this is the real letdown with the skeleton hands, guys. The real letdown with the skeleton hands is the fact that they're not actually particularly high in Lume. And despite the fact that the Lume's very good, it's not actually particularly easy to tell the time in low light. So then, of course, you can see on the far left, you can see the 2254.5. Now, bearing in mind, that watch that you're looking at on the left-hand side is 25 years old. So the Lume on that dial, the newer hands, by the way, the hands were replaced at service, which is quite normal, but the dial is original. And you can see, just as I've been talking, that the Lume on that dial has just started to fade a little bit. But look at the Lume on the hands. It's absolutely buzzing. But of course, it pales into insignificance still when you look at the Submariner. Now, bearing in mind the Submariner is less than 1 year old, so this is a brand new watch, pretty much. But the Lume is very, very good, isn't it? And as you can see, it's a very different colour too. It's blue, chromolite blue. Very, very good. Look, there's no question that I think the Lume on the Sub is the best. The Lume on the left-hand Seamaster is fabulous. I've never had a problem with it, and we really are now talking about first world problems between how good the Lume is on a Rolex Submariner compared to a Seamaster. The Lume is fantastic actually on 2 of these 3 watches, and could be an awful lot better if the hands if the watch on the right had sword hands, eh? I mean, that's when, just going back to those sword hands again, I do obsess over sword hands, as some of you will know from previous videos. So there you go. Even as I've been talking, we're 3 minutes in now. The Submariner is actually starting to really just sort of go ahead now, isn't it? You look at the other 2 watches and the Lume's just starting to fade a little bit, but the Sub's still there popping away. So out of these three watches, the Sub is the best, but you'd expect that. And as I said earlier, objectively, the Submariner is the better watch of these three in most regards. And here we are. You can see that very clearly in the Lume. So there you go. Three fantastic watches. I've been very deliberate about not trying to rank them. I didn't want to compare them and let you know, or even really have any discussion about which is better than the other. I suppose, you know, there are comparisons that you could draw between all three watches, but at the same time, they're all, as you've probably seen in the review, they're actually all very, very different in their own way as well. So it would be unfair to compare these watches. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. If you did enjoy the video and you haven't subscribed already, please do think about subscribing. If you can't be bothered to subscribe, then please give the video a thumbs up. I really appreciate you watching, guys. Thanks for hanging on until the bitter end. You really are crazy people, aren't you? Hanging on to the bitter end of a video like this. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Cheers.